So thank you everyone for joining this evening. So this event is focused on the LLM in Legal Practice programme. Thank you for submitting questions, those that have done along with your registration. Hopefully we will cover most of these during the session this evening, but we will have a question and answer session at the end as well. So if you do have anything else you think of during the session, please do pop it into the chat and we'll come to it at the end. Closed captions have been enabled, so you are able to access that, and the session will be recorded and we'll aim to send that out along with the slides tomorrow, so that you can go through that then as well. Lovely. So just to introduce ourselves then, so I'm Nicola. I'm the Student Recruitment Manager here at the College of Legal Practice. I lead the team who will answer anyone's inquiries, whether that's via our email or calling us up. We also offer one-to-one course advice sessions as well. So if you're just wanting some more information about the course after today's session, then do please get in touch with us so that we can assist you with that. Jane, are you okay to introduce yourself as well, please?
Lovely, thank you very much. So I'm Jane Waddell and I'm Head of Curriculum Development and Design at the college. So really everything academic. And my background, I practiced as a corporate finance solicitor for almost 20 years and then moved into higher education and focused exclusively on postgraduate professional law. So that's a very quick trot through my history. Thanks. Ben, over to you.
Thanks, Jane. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Palmer. I am, in my day job, I'm a senior employment advisor at the law firm Taylor Wessing, but I am also a student at the College of Legal Practice, and I am finishing my LLM in legal practice, which encompasses the preparation for both SQE1 and SQE2.
Brilliant. Thank you both. Okay then, so what will we be covering this evening then? So I'll be giving you an overview of who we are, who the College of Legal Practice is. We'll be talking through the SQE qualification route, and obviously going through the LLM structure and the modules that form part of our LLM in legal practice. We'll then be hearing from Ben in much more detail about his experience studying with us for the LLM. And then we will allow time for questions at the end as well. So, bit of an overview then about the College of Legal Practice. For those of you who don't know, we are a fully online postgraduate law school. We are accredited as well. We are purposely built for delivering our courses online. So we haven't used a course that we've previously delivered in an alternative means. Our programs are fully written for being delivered online, and we specialise in SQE preparation. So our parent company, the College of Law, are the leaders in legal education in Australia. So we're very experienced in delivering digital learning. We're all about accessible and affordable legal education. Traditionally, law has been known for being a profession with many barriers to entry, so we do our bit to eliminate this by offering courses at an affordable price. We also like to facilitate access through our personal and targeted individual support, where students get access to high levels of one-to-one tutor supervision, which you'll be hearing about this evening. And lastly, we ensure we facilitate an inclusive learning environment through our learning and teaching, and we can obviously make reasonable adjustments for those that need it, giving everyone an opportunity to get the most out of their learning. We work with a number of organisations that you will hopefully have heard of. So we partner with several universities where we actually provide the SQE preparation courses as part of their own LLM programmes. We also work with obviously many solicitors, firms and firms with legal departments. There's just a few that are listed there where we offer SQE preparation for their staff members. So then, let me give you an overview for those that don't know of what the SQE route actually entails. So in order to become a solicitor, in England and Wales, the Solicitors Regulatory Authority, the SRA, developed the new SQE route a few years ago now. And these are the sort of 4 aspects that are actually involved in it. So first of all, you'll need to have a degree or equivalent. Now you see it doesn't actually say a law degree. So a law degree isn't actually required, but it is obviously extremely difficult to be able to achieve this full sort of set really without that, and we'll be coming on that, and it'll probably become sort of apparent this evening during the webinar. So obviously you need to have your degree. Then there's the SQE1 and 2 assessment qualifications. So you'll need to take and pass these. They can be taken up to 6 years apart and up to 3 times each, and you must pass the SQE1 before you can book onto and take the SQE2. And it's obviously highly advised to take a preparation course to be able to pass these. So we're focusing on our LLM in legal practice this evening, but this does include the SQE preparation courses, so you'll be hearing about that aspect as well. So a master's isn't a requirement, but we'll be explaining more about the master's still this evening and why you might want to consider that and why that might be a route for you. And then alongside those, you will also need to gain 2 years full-time or equivalent qualifying work experience, which could be achieved before, during, or after your studies. So there's quite a bit of flexibility there. And you'll also need to meet the standard sort of suitability requirements as well, such as passing like a DBS check, background check. So then, if I give you just a brief overview initially then of what's made up, what the LLM in legal practice is made up of. So it's a full master's degree, which is 180 credits, awarded by ourselves as we have degree awarding powers, and it is delivered fully online. We don't have a campus anywhere that we'll be asking you to attend. It is a full online delivery, and you'll learn through a combination of materials on the online learning platform, in addition to a hard copy manual and live sessions that you'll attend as well, which Jane will be telling you more about. There's options to study on a 1-year full-time or a 2-year part-time, which we'll give examples of. And the cost for the programme is £7,245. And later on in the session, I'll be giving more of a breakdown of how this compares to individual preparation courses and about the assessments that are involved as well. The master's programme, if you're eligible for it personally, could be paid for using a postgraduate loan, and again I'll cover that a bit later on. So the modules are made up then of the SQE1 and SQE2 preparation course modules, transactional skill modules as well, and the Capstone project module. And I will hand you over to Jane now, who will give you much more detail on those. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Great. Thanks, Nicola. So the driver for most students choosing this particular LLM is because it covers SQE1 and SQE2. So there's 2 modules that deal with that. And the first one, as Nicola's already mentioned, is SQE1. Now, don't confuse our modules with the external exam that you need to go on and sit with Kaplan. So our modules are self-contained to us, but they prepare you for those external exams. So here's what we cover. SQE1 prep course, it's 30 credits, and it focuses on the functioning legal knowledge that the SRA require you to have in order to practice as a solicitor. And there's 13 practice areas that we look at and deal with. But the functioning legal knowledge is broken down into 2 areas. We call it FLK, Functioning Legal Knowledge 1, and FLK 2. And that's what the SRA call it. And do have a look at their website, and you'll see it all set out very clearly there. But there's 13 practice areas. So on this 30 credit module, we take you through all the practice areas, and we prepare you for an MCQ assessment. So what does the learning look like? Now, bearing in mind it's all online, we use Canvas as our online learning portal. And it's extremely intuitive, but also has a lot of analytics behind it. So it really lends itself to online learning. On it, we have almost 2,000 videos, activities. We call them workbook activities and scenarios, and I'll talk about them in a moment. And also supporting that are hard and soft copy practice area manuals. So there's 2 steps to all of this. One is gaining the knowledge in all the different practice areas, and then it's applying it and understanding it and testing it, and in the context of multiple choice questions. And I'll talk about them a bit more in a moment. So when we ran a pilot, what came out of that was that students, although they wanted online learning, they really like hard copy manual to work from. So we give you a hard copy manuals. There's quite a few of them across all the practice areas, but you can also access it online. So some prefer online, some people prefer hard copy, marking it up with coloured pens, or you have the option of both. So once you've done the learning, and we break it down into study units. So each study unit's about 2.5 hours learning. So you're given reading beforehand. Then you go through the workbook activities. So they could be flashcards that are online, drag and drop activities. So that tests your knowledge and lets you go back and read up and top up if you find there's areas you don't quite understand. Then at the end of every subunit, there's 10 MCQs. And those MCQs test you on your knowledge, but they give you excellent feedback. So just being told you're right or wrong isn't enough. You do need to get feedback that says, this is why it's wrong. Go back, and it gives you the chapter number and the paragraph that you need to go back and read in the manual to top up your learning. You can try those tests as often as you want. And they start to build up, and they represent what you'll encounter in the SQE1 national exam. So every 2.5 hours, subunits follow that format. So it becomes quite formulaic, but that helps students settle into the learning. On top of that, we then, the sort of support you get from us, because we can't put the learning into you, you do have to do it, and we set the units up for that. But the support we give you surgeries, they're effectively lectures, on legal content and concepts. So on for instance, in the full-time course, you would have about 3 of those a week, and they focus on a particular practice area and tricky areas in that practice area. We also have town hall meetings. Again, on the full-time course, it would be once a week. And those meetings just take a more holistic overview of your studies, what you should be thinking about, where you should be heading. Have you booked onto SQE1? Maybe tips on multiple choice and how to tackle them, revision techniques, and so on. And they're recorded, as are the surgeries, because we recognise a lot of students' work, and it may not fit in with their timings. So you can watch recordings as well. On top of that, you'll also be allocated a personal supervisor. And with 10 sessions in a full-time course, or 10 sessions in the part-time course as well, but they're spread out a little bit more. 5 of them are one-to-ones with your personal supervisor, and the other 5 are in small groups. So you get the opportunity to meet a small group of other students, and you can discuss your progress, perhaps any barriers you're encountering, what areas you're finding difficult, share MCQ techniques, and get the benefit of the personal supervisor's experience. On top of that, and for me, this was one of the great pleasures after designing and commissioning the entire curriculum and lots of people working on it, when we realised that the level students perform on our SQE prep module is almost identical to how they perform in SQE1. And what that told me was our course is pitched at the right level to prepare students for SQE1. Round about week 7, 8, 9, we can tell we've lots of progress tests that start. We encourage you to do them from about week 4, and we build up every week. You do more and more MCQs to test your knowledge. Round about week 8, week 9, we can predict with a reasonable degree of accuracy how well you're going to do in SQE1. Now, that assumes the students engaging, that they've done all the tests and they're reporting the results, although we can see them on Canvas, and we can have a ready review discussion with the student about whether they're ready to take it at the next opportunity. So that's a really invaluable tool for students and for us. So first question I'm always asked, how many MCQs do you have? We have over 2,300 SQE1 style MCQs. Now, what's an SQE1 style MCQ? They have 5 single best options and to choose from. Now, that's quite challenging because single best means they should all be right, but one is better than the others. So this is the challenge, that students have to have the knowledge and be able to apply it and be able to differentiate between what's correct, but what's even better given the particular facts of the scenario that you've been given in the question. So there's a real technique, and practice is key for this. So with lots of MCQs, we also have access to an app that generates unlimited numbers of MCQs that students can sign up to as well for a discount. But lots of practice is key. And we also do lots of timed assessments, those progress tests I mentioned earlier. So they kick in around about week 4 on the full-time course, and you start testing yourself in time conditions. It works out at about 1 minute, 40 seconds per MCQ. So it's a real challenge in terms of you need the knowledge at your fingertips, and you need to be able to apply it. So what our course does, apart from giving you the knowledge, we help you build up your stamina and technique to answer these MCQs quickly and slickly and be able to move on to the next one. After the module finishes, we don't leave you high and dry, because we know a lot of you are wanting to go on and do SQE1. So we have a 360 MCQ mock assessment that we encourage students to do once they've done a bit of revision. Give the mock assessment a go in timed conditions so that they get a feel for what it will be like on the day when they do SQE1. So that's SQE1 prep course. Then moving on to SQE2. Now, this is a skills course. So SQE1 was all about functioning legal knowledge. SQE2 is about the skills you need to become a lawyer. However, it has to be done in the context of law, which isn't a surprise. And that law is the law you've learned in SQE1. So 50% of the mark in SQE2 is attributed to your functioning legal knowledge, and 50% are the skills that are being tested. And the skills include, there's no surprises, advocacy, being able to interview a client effectively, usually in the context of either property or wills, advocacy, wills, etc. And advocacy is in the context of usually litigation and usually crime, but also it could be dispute resolution, and legal writing, legal drafting. So all the usual suspects. And you get, the key thing is having lots of practice and being able to dip back into SQE1 prep and access materials there to top up the gaps in your knowledge. So the course is beautifully designed to let you have lots of opportunities to practice and feedback and top up your knowledge. We give you a skills guide, as well as lots of demos of what, for instance, a good legal advice letter should look like and what a good advocacy session looks like. We give you, as with the SQE, excuse me, as with the SQE1 prep course, we give you lots of support from supervisors, and with surgeries on the skills across the practice areas, and you've town halls, both are recorded, and then you also have your personal supervision sessions. And on top of that, we also include another SQE ready review. The practice we give you is the 16, we give you lots of builds, so you can start seeing what legal drafting should look like. Then you can start having a go yourself and marking your work. And then we give you 16 practice and feedbacks with live supervisor feedback. So they will mark your work first, give you comments, they mark it against the assessment criteria, which is almost identical to SQE2 1, and give you feedback against that. So you get a real sense of how you're going to perform in the national exams. Then we have our summative assessments, they're timed, and that again simulates what you'll encounter on SQE2. Now, just to sum up both of these ones, everything we do to prepare you also points towards each module's summative assessment, which you need to pass in order to complete your master's programme with us. So that sits quite independently from SQE1 and SQE2 national exams. So it is possible that you pass the national exams but haven't passed our summative assessments, for instance, or reverse, you pass ours but not the national exams. They're very separate, and it's important to remember that. It can get a little bit lost in the messaging. Nicola, can we have the next slide? Lovely, thank you. So here we have transactional modules, and these are often known as elective modules. And you can choose 2 from this list. And depending on where you are imagining yourself in practice, that will probably inform which the choice you make. It can also signal on your CV where your interest lies to a future employer. They're, as the name suggests, they're very transactional based. We're testing and developing the skills in those practice areas that you would need in order to practice in them. So they're quite practical. You might, for instance, acquisitions and finance, you might be asked to draft heads of terms. You'll be given a scenario, you'll be given lots of facts. You need to sift through them, do the reading from practical law, usually, and then have a go at drafting heads of terms. And then you submit them to your supervisor. And then there's a group session where you get feedback on the submissions, and you also get generic feedback on what a really good example of heads of terms would look like and what the common errors and mistakes are. So very much what you'd be doing in practice, having a go at something and then giving it to your supervising partner to comment on, and quite often say, go away and, you know, make a few improvements. And that's all part of the learning with this. So quite a good choice there, I think, for anyone, depending on whether you're heading for the high street or more commercial firms. Then, so you do 2 of those. So if you do 2 of those, you're at 60 credits. If you've done SQE1 and SQE2, you've got another 60 credits. And then the balance to make up your master's is, we move over to the right-hand side of this screen, and it's a capstone. And this is a research project, so it's very much, it's like a dissertation. So good element of self-study. It's 60 credits, and you choose it from one of the areas in the transactional modules. So my advice is, if you're thinking of heading towards, say, commercial law, then you would choose that and then look for something that interests you. And usually I always recommend students choose an area that has a lot of literature and lots to get your teeth into. And then you write that, you get a supervisor, they look at your proposal, and then you work it up and you get feedback, and then you submit it for marking. And the capstone, well, actually, that's a good opportunity to go on to the next slide, Nicola, and we can look at what the study pattern looks like here. Okay, so if you're on choosing a full-time LLM, it's a 1-year programme, the average is 30 to 35 hours study time per week. Now, I would, right from the word go, that SQE1 prep course starts with a bang. There is no freshers week, there's no getting to know and have a think about it. Right from day one, you are learning knowledge that you need to take forward. So 30 to 35 hours study time, you need to be confident that you have that time. It's not something you can fit in around a full-time job, or certainly not easily. And the other thing I would say with this, when working out how much time you have to study, The knowledge you collect acquire in SQE1, you remember you need to use it in SQE2, because 50% of SQE2 depends on the knowledge you've gained in SQE1. So that knowledge has to be secure, has to be memorable, well embedded, so that you can retrieve it again for SQE2. And a lot of it you will retrieve again in practice. So it's time well spent. So SQE1, there we are, 13 weeks. Then we move along. You have a 2-week gap for revision, and then the national SQE1 exams take place. So the way we've structured our masters, the timings has been dictated by the national exams, which we don't control, and then we've worked out a timetable of delivery around them. What you don't want to do if you're doing SQE1, it's a bit like running a marathon or training for a marathon. You don't then want a 3-month gap. You want to hit it at the point at which you're at your peak. So we reckon 2 to 3 weeks revision, and then you're into SQE1. If you're choosing, it's optional for this master's, but we assume most students are heading towards it. Then you move on to transactional modules, so you can draw a little bit of breath, a little bit more relaxed. You're not training for national exams. It's 9 weeks, and also it's a topic you've chosen, an area, practice area you've chosen that you have an interest in. There's a 2-week gap, and then the next transactional module runs over 9 weeks, another 2-week gap, and then you go on to SQE2. And it's 10 weeks. It's not as long as SQE1. And then there's a gap, and then straight into SQE2, if you're planning to sit it, the national exams. And then after that, you can submit your capstone project. And we encourage students to at least shape it up early on and have an idea so they start thinking about it. And the secret of a capstone is just to do a little and often and build up your knowledge bank. And then you've got enough to start writing on. If we go to the next slide, I'll show you the part-time option, which isn't that different. It's just been, we've just juggled around with it a little bit so that it goes over 2 years, but also is timed to hit those key SQE1 and SQE2 dates. Again, here, not a surprise, we recommend 15 to 20 hours study time per week. So although it's part-time, I would say it's not very part-time. You really need to be strict with yourselves and your employer, if you have one, as to when you're going to study. And studying at 11 at night, for most people over 2 years, is not really achievable or enjoyable. And I firmly believe that learning can be enjoyable if you get the right conditions. And also, this is learning you're going to take forward. It's really useful. You're not going to dump this stuff. You're going to be using it in practice. So have a hard think about when you'd fit those hours in your week. And often it means talking to your employer and also your other responsibilities, families, etc. So there we go. We've got SQE1 and then transactional module. Oh, here we've got the comparison, so you can compare the two together. And that gives you an idea. So with SQE, the part-time module, you can see there that we've just sandwiched SQE2 in the middle. That's the fundamental difference between the two pathways, and also all the timings doubled up. Good. Right, thank you, Nicola.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jane. Lovely. So I'd like to invite Ben to have a chat with us now, if that's okay. And I will stop sharing my screen for a moment. Brilliant. Ben, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
So yeah, just really, as I say, thanks for being here, and it just makes such a difference, I think, for people to be able to hear from you, and hear your own experience of studying with us. So first of all, would you mind just telling everyone sort of a bit about yourself and a bit of an overview of kind of your journey and sort of what your circumstances were before you began studying for the LLM, and sort of what prompted you to do so, really?
Sure. No, that's a really good question. So yes, I'm currently a senior employment advisor at Taylor Wessing, and prior to that, I worked at Marks and Spencer in their in-house legal team, focusing on employment law, and I'd been paralegaling for a fair few years, so I think 2 or 3 years. And I actually thought, right, it's time. I really do want to become a solicitor. And it was just about the time that the SQE had, came into place. I was trying to research what on earth the SQE was, how I could do it, if I could do it around work, if I could do it part-time, full-time, etc. And I kind of just got researching while I was working at M&S, what would the SQE look like for me, if it would be possible. And I had a really supportive manager at Marks and Spencer. And I echo what Jane said earlier, that if you are working full time, make sure your employer is on board, because it is a significant time commitment alongside full time work doing the SQE. But I was speaking to my manager, and my manager was super supportive and basically said, no, yeah, go for it. Try, you should be a solicitor. And the SQE seems like a super sensible route to go down, because as many people on this call would know, training contracts and the traditional LPC and then training contract route is a very difficult route to qualify as a solicitor. So I thought, you know what, right, okay, I'm going to give the SQE a go. And I got in touch. So I was looking at various different providers, and there's lots of them out there. But I came across the College of Legal Practice, and I spoke to a few providers. But I spoke to Student Recruitment and the College of Legal Practice, and they guided me through kind of what the SQE would look like for me. Everything from answering questions to finances, to kind of how it fits around exams. I also attended very similar, webinars like this one to kind of work out, what the SQE is and how it would ensure that I qualify. And then at that point, I felt, right, okay, I'm comfortable to go for the SQE. And yeah, I enrolled onto the course, and at the College of Legal Practice, and I am currently finishing. So on that journey that Jane was explaining, I'm right at the end of that journey now. So I have completed the course just about. Tomorrow is actually my last day. It's my submission for my Capstone module. And then throughout that, I've sat the SQE1 exam, which I passed, and then I'm waiting for my results for SQE2. And then I guess following that, provided I pass SQE2, I'm then in a position to apply for my practicing certificate of the Solicitors Regulation Authority as a solicitor, because I've already got my 2 years qualifying work experience, and I in fact did that before and during my SQE course at the College of Legal Practice.
That's great, thanks, Ben. And I do hope your capstone project is finished, and we've not just taken your last
Just
sort of
about.
hours away from you. So yeah, so thank you even more for joining this evening.
No
then.
worries.
And so when you was looking at the different options, Ben, what drew you to taking the LLM as opposed to just the individual preparation courses?
No, that's a really good question, actually. And I did kind of flutter between the two. I just thought, right, okay, should I do SQE1, SQE2 prep courses only, or do I want to do the masters? When I was looking precisely at the College of Legal Practice LLM, I think it made sense for a number of reasons. So one, I think finance-wise, as a master's, you can get the student finance funding, which is a very practical reason, but also a reason that probably a lot of people on this call will be considering. Two, I do enjoy law, and it's something that I want to continue as a career for many years. And I think I have a particular interest in employment law. And when I was looking at the transactional modules that the College of Legal Practice offered, employment law was one of those. And I also like the fact that when you do the capstone, you can actually tailor that to your interests and what you want to do. So, some people on this call may be doing or have done a dissertation. It's very similar to a dissertation where you're researching, and you can really tailor it to what you're interested in and what you're doing. So I do employment law in my current role. It was quite nice because it aligned very well with my role previously at M&S and now at Taylor Wessing. It aligned with that very well. And I think as well with the LLM, you learn a lot of skills beyond the SQE1 prep course and SQE2 prep course. So the SQE1 and SQE2 get you exam ready and teach you the real skills to be a solicitor. But beyond that, I think the LLM transactional modules can provide you with a little more of a niche, a bit more specialized learning. So I did one of my transactional modules was, for example, in dispute resolution, and that really helps me with my job in employment law because I, work on litigation. So it is helpful, and it kind of just takes that learning and those the kind of your wider educational abilities in law that little one step further. So I think I think I found it interesting, and I could tailor it to kind of my my interests.
Yeah, that's really useful to hear. Thank you. And can I ask why you did choose to study with us in the end? I know you mentioned you'd sort of spoke to a few providers.
So I think the first thing was the tailored one-to-one support, because there is a lot of providers out there, and I'm sure many people on this call are considering which provider they wish to go to. But for me, the College of Legal Practice really stood out because everyone from day one on the LLM gets a personal tutor effectively, and they get that tailored one-to-one support. I think on two levels. My personal tutor has been with me throughout my course, and she's been absolutely incredible. And I think you can always go to them whether you just have a niche query, whether it's something more pastoral and you need support on that front, or whether it's, I had I was really struggling at the beginning with kind of, working full time, studying part time. And, we developed a plan together with my personal tutor on how my studies will look alongside full-time work, which I found really helpful. So so I think having that, that allocated contact, particularly when you're working online, having that allocated contact that you could go to, I thought was really helpful, and having regular catch-ups with them was really useful. Secondly, and I think having done the exams, the SQE exams, I think it's really important to practice, practice, and practice. It's one thing having the knowledge, but you really do, for both SQE1 and SQE2, you do really have to put that knowledge into practice. And, as Jen was saying, there's thousands of multiple choice questions. You get constant feedback. There is metrics and data collation on the Canvas site, which allows you to constantly assess, are you ready for the SQE? Are you on track? Is there areas of, your knowledge that you've got gaps in, and you can go back and actively improve that area of knowledge? So I think, it's the ability to practice, but then the extent of the opportunities to practice that the College of Legal Practice provides, which really stood out. And then I guess thirdly, I think, study online, and most people's courses are online, particularly post-COVID-19. I think most people are more open to studying online, and it is something that I think, particularly when you're working full-time or have other commitments, it can be a lot more flexible. But I think with being online, I think I didn't want to feel like I was just online looking at a screen. I wanted that level of interaction. And I think, there's several opportunities to interact not only with staff and tutors and specialists in precise areas of law, but also with the students as well. There's course representatives, you have town halls where you kind of can all come together electronically and, bounce ideas off each other. So there is that, you don't feel kind of you're just alone in this. There's kind of several layers of support. You can go to your students. I made friends with some of my fellow students who were on my intake, which was really nice. And you can kind of all team together. There's also discussion boards as well. And you can all help each other out by answering each other's questions, or the supervisor can come back and answer kind of a knowledge specific question. So so I think, yes, I knew I wanted an online course because it was flexible and it worked for my life, but also I didn't want to feel like I was just online alone. And at the College of Legal Practice, very much just have layers of support, but also opportunities for you to meet other people as well.
Oh, that's great. And so you mentioned earlier about sort of working at the same time. How did you manage to sort of balance that then?
Yes, I think it did, and I agree with what Jane said, that you do really need to get started straight away. You have a timetable and you have to stick to it. And I think that was something I struggled with at the beginning. But I think once I had a conversation with my personal tutor about how I can work, how I can work full time but study part time and what that would look like, it worked pretty well. So I think I allocated one day of the weekends to kind of really dedicate to study, almost as if you were doing a full day's worth of work, but for studying. I found that particularly useful because I could get a lot done. And I think having that one day of the week where you're allocating for study, I think just really helped your week ahead. And then secondly, I would do 2 or 3 nights maybe after work. Nothing too intense, but a fair few hours that I would commit to studying to try and, particularly with SQE1 as well, to get through the content and be really laser focused on kind of getting to the exam. I think as well, you do have to be very, self-disciplined. It isn't something you can go into light-hearted. You do need to acknowledge you're studying for, a very difficult qualification, whether that's the SQE qualification with Kaplan and the SRA, or you're getting a master's qualification, which is obviously a very high level qualification. So I think you do need to commit to it, and you can't go into it light-heartedly. And something that I mentioned previously is you do have to, I think if you're working full time, you do need to have your employer on board, because even though kind of the college is very flexible in terms of, your studies, there is, for example, exams that happen throughout the week in a Kaplan centre where you will need to attend them, and sometimes I would meet with my feedback supervisors on my lunch hour, that sort of thing. So I think having your kind of understanding what your commitments are, both at work and with studies, aligning them and making sure you have a clear plan from the outset, from day one, and sticking to it. That's kind of studying. But then I also think, if you are, you do need time for yourself and you do need to have a life. And so I think also allocating time for, to relax, have fun, do everything that you want to do in life outside of work and studying. It's also really important to ensure that you have, good mental health and you do feel recharged to actually, do your studies. So yeah, so I would say having a timetable, making sure that you understand what your commitments are, both inside and outside of work, and then also kind of allocating some time to kind of recharge, relax, so you feel refreshed for your studies.
That's a really good point, Ben, because you could look at all the hours of your week and plot it all out for working and studying, but obviously, everyone's got to have a little bit of downtime in there as well. Obviously, if someone was didn't have a job at all and were just going to study full time, it might be less other things sort of conflicting with their time. But did you find it sort of beneficial to be working at the same time? I know you talked about the modules that you picked that aligned with your job as well.
Yes, I did. And I think as well, there was often times when I would be speaking to my manager or someone at work, and I'm like, oh, actually, there's something on the SQE that would help me here, or there's something in my LLM that I did that would help with this. Not from just a knowledge perspective, but also a skills perspective. Like, in the SQE2 and the module preparing you for SQE2 on the master's program, you are learning drafting, writing, advocacy, interviewing skills. It is all very helpful in the legal world, in particular, being a paralegal, being a trainee solicitor, doing all these things are skills that you need in your career, whether that's in the future as a solicitor or now. So as a paralegal, as a senior employment advisor, I use the skills I've learned throughout the master's program, on an absolutely daily basis. So and I think as well, going back to what Jane said earlier as well, it's not a course where, we've all learned things at university or in school whereby, you have that knowledge and then it's gone once you've done the exam. Actually, if you want a career in law, the knowledge that you learn throughout the master's program, throughout the SQE prep, it's knowledge and it's skills that you'll carry forward for life and in your career. So it is super helpful. And that's probably, one of the things that actually I think stands out the LLM and the SQE prep from other qualifications like university degrees, school, A levels, that sort of thing.
Brilliant. And just wondering as well, we've been asked this before about whether sort of a law degree is necessary. Obviously people quite often will change their mind and want to sort of change their sort of direction of their studies and their careers and things. how useful did you find your LLB? You know, could you imagine having studied this without that kind of background knowledge already?
No, I could not. So I had my law degree. I got a LLB from the University of Leeds, and yes, I couldn't have started this without a background in law. You know, my background has very much been, you know, legal from university. But I would strongly recommend, if anyone doesn't have a law degree, you do need kind of, the fundamental principles of, the legal system before you can start this course. It's also very beneficial because, particularly with the SQE prep, I think, if you have done a law degree or are finishing a law degree, there's certain areas of law that you'll already have covered, like contract law, constitutional law, that sort of stuff. So that is all content that would be very helpful for you on the SQE1 and SQE2. But there's also areas of law that I'd never studied business law in practice before. I never studied, property law in practice. So there's new areas of law as well, but the fundamental, core bases of the law you do definitely need. So I would strongly suggest anyone that is considering doing the LLM and the SQE1 and SQE2 prep to ensure you either have a law degree or some sort of legal qualification conversion course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Lovely. Okay, that's probably it for now. Well, one last thing was just really, do you think taking the LLM has been beneficial for you with your career as well as just the SQE?
Yes, I do. I really do believe that. I think, particularly with my career, I think, I really enjoy employment law and I see myself as an employment law solicitor. But I think the LLM has really allowed me to push my knowledge of employment law that one step further. And look at areas of employment law that I wouldn't do in my day job, which I do genuinely have an interest in. So that's been really helpful. And also as well, one thing to mention about the LLM is that, your supervisors for those particular transactional modules and your capstone are specialists in that area of law and have often practiced as lawyers in that area of law. So my capstone supervisor, my capstone dissertation is on employment law, and she is an employment solicitor, and so we have super interesting conversations and we bounce ideas off each other that are really, really helpful. So yes, so the LLM I think is, I'm really glad I've done not only the SQE1 and SQE2 prep for kind of getting the SQE under my belt to become a solicitor, but also the LLM just, I think, gives you that, the extra skill set and that extra knowledge that can really help you in your career.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks so much, Ben. And we might have some more questions for you at the end if that's
Sure.
okay as well.
No worries. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Right, let me reshare my screen. There we go. Okay then. So so I know we've sort of mentioned obviously about the SQE preparation courses as well. So I know people are sort of considering both that have joined this evening. So things to consider then when deciding which path is the right thing for you. First of all, do you like the sound of what we've discussed in terms of those different modules, and what Ben's obviously mentioned as well, that he sort of studied there, or do you think actually no, I'm just want to focus on purely just those preparation courses and taking those? Lots of important things to consider in terms of your available time for studying. We've given you an idea of the sort of timescales involved, and the amount of commitment that you need to have there. Rigid or flexible learning. So you'll have seen from the layout of those different modules there that Jane talks through, the LLM is quite rigid in terms of, there's that path that you do follow. And even if you decide perhaps you're not ready to take the SQE assessments as they come up, you do need to continue on that program and working through the rest of those modules. Whereas actually, if you took this separate standalone preparation courses, you could sort of take one and then just worry about what's happening, you know, after that. Once you've passed that one, you might decide that you're not working currently, and you've got time to commit to a full-time SQE preparation course for SQE1, but you're not sure if your situation might change in a few months' time, when you might then be looking at SQE2, and then you could book onto a part-time one then, for example. So you've got a little bit more flexibility that way. With the longer course, you can obviously spread the costs out further across the year. So I'll come on to the fees shortly as well. And be mindful of timings of when the SQE assessments are that either you're aiming for, but also when they might be in relation to anything else that might be going on in your life at that time, which could affect your available study time. So I've put together a bit of a table here so you can compare the fees. So as I mentioned earlier, the master's course is £7,245. If you compare that to taking the individual preparation courses, the SQE1 is £2,200, SQE2 is £2,700, so £4,900 in total. The SQE actual assessment fees, regardless of, you know, if you take them as part of the LLM or study for them separately, that comes to a total of £4,790. So if just going down the prep course route only and those assessments, it's £9,690 versus the total cost for the LLM and taking those assessments of £12,035. Now, I mentioned it earlier, and obviously Ben mentioned it as well. Something that's very attractive for taking the LLM is the fact that if you're eligible to do so, it would meet the criteria for the postgraduate loan. And actually, if you took out the full amount, it would cover those assessment fees as well as our LLM program studying with us as well. So that's one reason that it's quite attractive for a lot of people as well. There isn't any government funding to take the individual preparation courses, so the options would be to obviously pay individually, or perhaps if you have a supportive employer, if you're working in the legal area already, they might be willing to fund that for you. If you was to pay directly yourself, the fees, the way they've broken down is that we ask for a deposit of £150 to secure your place and to accept your offer onto the courses. With the SQE preparation courses, we'll ask for half of the fees 2 weeks before the course starts and the remaining balance halfway through the programme. With the LLM, you would 2 weeks before you would normally pay it's £1,661 2 weeks before the course starts, or with a part-time it's £760 2 weeks before the course starts, and the remainder can then be paid in equal instalments across the programme. Just to tell you about the upcoming start dates that we have. If you're looking at starting something soon, if you're available now, our 1 year full-time LLM next starts on the 24th of March, or the part-time one is actually starting on Monday. We are still able to accept applications for that. Obviously, it's getting very close to the start date, so it might mean that you miss the first few sessions, but if you're interested in doing that, get your application in as soon as possible and do let us know so that we can process that for you and get you started as soon as possible. There's further dates there for the next intakes there as well, and the SQE courses, because they do line up with the start of the LLM, again the full-time 13-week SQE1 preparation course starts on the 24th of March. The 20-week one starts on the 3rd of February. We do also have a 40-week SQE1 preparation course as well, where it's more like 8 to 10 hours of study time per week. So if what we've described tonight, you've actually thought, actually, even the part-time route sounded a little bit too much in terms of timing commitment, there's the 40-week SQE1 preparation course as well, where it's more like 8 to 10 hours of study time per week. So that's another one to consider, and that one starts on the 17th of March. So we'll just come to some questions in a moment, but I've just popped this on the screen, and I will email this out along with the copy of the slides as well, the links to these resources. But one to show here, if you're able to scan it at all, is a link for our demos that we have. So we have an SQE1 preparation course demo and also a transactional skills demo as well, where you can actually get a bit of an insight into the learning materials that you would work through. And another guide that is that we've put together, which can be quite useful as well, is our Secrets to SQE Success guide, where we've got some top tips from our former students who have studied with us and passed the SQE, and also our academic team as well. So we've got some contact details here of how you can get in touch for further information. I'll leave that up on the screen. I know Jane, I think, has been answering some questions as we go through, but I will just have a look, try and have a look now as well and see if there's anything that we've not been able to get to. Jane, have you seen if there's any further questions that we need to come to?
Yeah, yes, there are one or two. Qualified solicitor in Ghana, check the SRA website to see. It varies depending on where you're qualified, what requirements they need you to go through in order to practice here. They should be reduced requirements, but to get the detail, have a look at the SRA website. Someone else asking about online versus and what's live, what isn't. Your sessions with your supervisor are obviously live, and the surgeries are live, but they are recorded if you can't attend them, and the town hall meetings are delivered live, but again, they're recorded if you can't attend them. And then within each study unit, there are online media items, mini lectures, etc., that you just watch at your own time. And I think that might be all the outstanding questions. There's been some good ones.
Brilliant, thank you.
There's one or two more in the bottom.
Who awards the LLM? We award it ourselves. We're fully, we have full degree awarding powers. So it is ourselves that award that. And we have a graduation ceremony as well. We had our very first one in December, and it was really lovely to see our students meeting each other. Ben obviously said about the sort of interactions he's had with, you know, sort of course mates. So it was really nice. I think a lot were just meeting each other for the very first time in person, and obviously for all our staff to meet them as well. So that was great.
Someone's commenting on the low SQE pass rate, and did it affect your motivation, Ben? Clearly not.
No, it didn't. I understand. You know, it can be a bit disheartening looking at the low pass rates, but I think if you want to be a solicitor and you want to do the LLM, it certainly didn't faze me.
Good.
Thanks, Ben. One last question as well. Someone has asked if you want to join the LLM, but you've only registered so far for the SQE prep. We don't currently have a way to sort of switch between the two or sort of top up. So it's currently a situation of trying to just decide at the moment which you think would be the better route for yourself to go on to. We'll happily have further conversations about that with you.
Someone's asking about our pass rate for SQE. One, we don't know because students have to self-report. So it's not accurate, but what we do know is that how you perform in our course is indicative of how you'll perform in SQE. So students who engage and complete all the learning and do the progress tests and are passing those at around about 60% mark will almost certainly go on to pass SQE1. Now, individuals aren't statistics, but collectively, that's the pattern we're seeing. So I'm sorry, it's a lawyerly answer to, but we don't have that information. We rely on student self-reporting, and a lot of them don't. And then there was something else down there. Let me see. Somebody's graduating 2026. Have a look at our website. We don't follow a traditional academic calendar. We have courses starting all the time, working backwards from the SQE dates. And of course, there's 4 SQE1 dates every year at the moment. So if you graduate 2026, I think you could probably start in September, maybe even earlier. Yes, the conversion course is recognised by the bar standards. We don't do the LPC. We don't touch it at all. We focus solely on SQE. And right from the word go, we've done that. We haven't lifted and shifted anything from the LPC. The LPC is day 1 trainee standard, whereas SQE1, and people forget this, SQE1 is 2 years advanced knowledge, is newly qualified solicitor. So it's actually quite a big jump up, which may well explain some of the pass rates. And I think over a couple of years, people have just been having a go, thinking it's multiple choice, but it does require some serious studying, as you'd hope, because Ben, you're now unleashed in the public on to advise them.
No, exactly. And yeah, I would reiterate that. I think SQE1, yes, is multiple choice, but it certainly is not easy. It is a difficult exam. So when people ask me, oh, I think I'll study without doing a prep course. No, my advice is don't do that, and always have support and always have a preparation course.
Now, someone's saying, asking about the awards, who awards the LLM? It's us. We have degree awarding powers. So we award the LLM.
Brilliant. I think that's pretty much we've pretty much covered everyone's questions there. What I will do is obviously our contact details are on the screen, so do jot those down if you want to get in touch. But I'll be aiming to email everyone who's registered as well with a copy of the slides and a recording of the presentation tomorrow as well. So feel free to come back to us then after that with any further questions. We're always happy to help and answer anything that we can do. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, and have a really good evening.